Hi everyone, it's Hans here, the founder of Cappuccino, and welcome back to this latest episode of Flat Whites and Insights, a podcast created to allow a space for open, honest and vulnerable conversations with real people held over a beautiful cup of coffee. I'm back for Series 4 and I can't wait to get going again with so much more to dive into and share with you guys. So to grab a coffee for yourselves, take a moment, and I hope you enjoy this latest conversation. Thank you, take care, and enjoy. Dan, hi.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Thank you so much for taking up some time on a Sunday to have a chat, and really looking forward to get to know a little bit more about yourself and hear about all the things you've been doing. I know you've been keeping very busy recently.
Yes, yeah. Thank you for having me as well. You've actually got me out of putting the Christmas decorations up at time of recording, so
Nice. I've done well there. Yeah, and I can see that you're in your newly refurbished studio as well.
yeah, it's all looking new. Yeah, it's all getting there. So yes, I'm really happy with it.
Nice, amazing. So before we kind of go in, you're right to give a brief introduction, kind of for myself, but for also people who may be listening, watching, about yourself, your journey, a little bit about you and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hello, I'm Dan Draper. I'm a radio presenter. I've done online content. I've worked with loads and loads of different brands like BBC Radio 1, Amazon Music, Lad Bible, blah, 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 and on. Loads more that we'll get into in the episode. But yeah, I started off podcasting, which again, I'm sure that we'll touch on. But yeah, basically, jack of all trades, master of none.
Well, you're putting yourself down there, but yeah, it sounds like, as you say, even from that short, brief intro, though, real range of different places that you work for, but generally along is kind of presenting, hosting in the kind of media world.
Yeah, it wasn't always that way though. Yeah.
No, amazing. But so yeah, Radio One, it's something that, I mean, for a lot of people, I'm sure there's many stages of your journey, and it's not, but to be on the national radio, I feel like I'm going to start there. I'll probably be in that cliche, that person who hears Radio 1 and goes, oh my God. But it might have felt a little bit like that for yourself, or how was that whole experience and being able to do that as well?
It was a whirlwind, and I'll tell you why. Because so pre-Radio 1, I was actually looking at getting engaged to my now wife. So I had all of the stress of, I need to find the ring. I need to make sure that it's perfect. I need to this, that, and the other. And then obviously I then got the call from Radio 1. And I was just like, oh my God, like it's just so much. But in regards to the actual Radio 1 thing, so I was actually part of the class of 2024 when it was the Christmas presenter search that they were looking for. So it was a group of people. We all put demos in and you just kind of throw it out there and really just hope for the best. And you think, okay, well, we'll keep everything crossed. Hopefully it all works out really well. And yeah, I remember I was at Riverside Radio. So the one that I've been at for 5 years now. And I was sitting in Studio 2 and I was in there with a friend of mine and we were just chatting. He'd just finished his show. We were just chatting. I was just doing some pre-recording bits and X, Y, and Z. And yeah, I got a phone call from a number. And it's one of those numbers that it's like, like what used to be like a PPI or something like that. So I kind of swiped across and thought, I'll entertain it. Hello, Dan speaking. Hi, Dan, it's Alex from Radio 1. I went, oh! And yeah, and then after that, it was just a whirlwind of, we'd like to get you in. We really like the sound of your voice. We'd like you to come and do sort of a trial run as such, and kind of go from there. And then, yeah, I went in, walking in the door to Radio 1 was just ridiculous because I've only ever walked past the BBC before. And then walking in the door and then sitting on the sofa and going up to the the top floor basically where they do Radio 1 was just so surreal. And like the first day that I went, I'll never forget this actually. Someone gave me some advice for it. They were saying to me, oh, you should go in and have like a little token gesture. And I was like, what's that then? And they were like, anything, could be anything. So I decided, because it's near Oxford Street, to go into Tottenham Court Road. I went into the Krispy Kremes that was in there and just brought a load of donuts in. The first two people that came up and out of their studio, Sam and Danny. They were like, donuts? Yeah, go on then.
Oh, amazing. Yeah.
No, I love them. They've got such a good chemistry as well. Just speaking about Sam and Danny,
Yeah,
yeah, it really works. I think when you find a partnership that just works,
yeah, exactly.
they actually haven't been. I mean, I don't know. Maybe time is hard to find time, but I feel like their rise has been quite quick. In that, I
Yeah.
feel because did they go through a similar process to yourself? Were they on one of the Christmas ones, or when it was the New Year and they got it?
Yeah, so it was basically the same sort of scheme. So it was so people like Sam and Danny, Nat O'Leary, Vicky Hawksworth, and there's a couple of others that I can't remember, but definitely all of those four all came through the Christmas presenter search, sorry, through various years. So yeah, it was they've done quite well with it, and that's a huge thing that Radio One's got as a plus over every other radio station is that they give people chances who don't have you know thousands of followers to do this, that, and the other, or that type of thing. So for me, I was really, really grateful when I got the opportunity. And as I said, walking in the building was incredible, firstly. But once you get into the studio, and my studio was Greg James's one that he does. So when he does the breakfast show, I went into the big boy studio.
Into then, yeah.
Yeah, literally. And I was just like, hello. And there I what did I do? On the first day that I got in there, I got in around the time that Ricky, Melvin, and Charlie are on. So I've interviewed Melvin previously and I was saying hello, but this was at the time that he was in the jungle. So he literally just got back and we were having a bit of a chat and said hello. And then, Ricky, funnily enough, was sat in that chair over there the other day, which by the time this comes out, that episode's already out for me for the podcast as well. And yeah, it was just the most surreal moment. And then, like on the desk, for example, people say, like, I've heard people like Mr. Jam at Capitol, and other people call it a spaceship desk. Honestly looks like that. Like you've got so many sort of faders and buttons and this and that and the other, and you look in and go, I'm at my depth.
No,
But it was,
amazing.
honestly, the training that was there was incredible as well. Like I did a couple of sessions with them, and then I did the breakfast show live. So I did Greg's breakfast show on the 30th and 31st of December. So I was gearing people up for New Year, and at that point, I was just like, right, you've got to go all in for this because you never know when you're going to come back. This is an incredible opportunity, and yeah, I went for it, and I thought, why not?
I love that. And I think something you mentioned there about when you sat at that desk and there's all the excitement of the call and then you sat there and you're like, this is real. And there's that kind of that moment of, oh my gosh, what if, I don't know if at any point it enters your mind, like, what if, something happens or doesn't go to plan, but I guess it's about that. And you've probably been in live radio for long enough and seen, but you can't really go in thinking that. You just got to enjoy it, enjoy the moment. And once
Yeah.
you go in, I imagine once you're live, you kind of just go into kind of that presenter mode and you just kind of, it feels normal.
Yeah, 100%. And do you know what was really lovely? So I had a group of producers with me each day. And the producers at one point felt so comfortable that they were like, okay, cool. We're just going to go grab a cup of coffee. So we'll be back in 2 minutes. We'll leave someone outside just in case everything goes wrong. But yeah, just in case, we're just going to go grab a coffee. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I am doing a national breakfast radio show, just me in the studio at this particular point. And then I was like, oh, actually, they're just outside, so that's fine. Like, But I think that was a really good sort of baptism of fire for me because I was like, I know that I can present, I know that I can do this because I've been doing this on Riverside and podcasting and live events for God knows how many how long. But actually, I felt like it was the biggest confidence boost that the producers gave me not only to make me feel like I was one of their friends and that we had built that relationship, but also at the same time to have the trust in me as a presenter to be like, okay, we can give you like a minute or two whilst the songs are playing so you don't know what's going on. I mean, I must admit, I did not go live when the producers weren't there. So it was very much like a let's just leave you in the room, get used to it, soak up the atmosphere kind of thing. Because, yeah, I would have just... I think I would have been fine, but I think I would have also freaked out at the same time if I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah, so much. It's just me now. Here we go.
Yeah.
But I think it's something that you mentioned there. And I think in all walks of life, any jobs, I think that small gestures or phrases that just show that trust must be something. And that probably they might have been doing it consciously realizing that. It might have just been because they were so confident and and you were clearly knew what you were doing. But yeah, feeling trusted, or that fact they're like, yeah, we'll leave you to it, is one of the biggest things I think in any place, because it's one of the things people want, to feel trusted to be themselves as well, and then you can bring yourself to it. Yeah. Amazing. But so whirlwind experience, and then feels like you've brought your podcast back now. But before we dive into that, I'll stick with the radio. So you mentioned Riverside. You've been there for coming up to, was it 5 years now? So
just over 5 years, in September. Yeah.
Amazing. And so something I did want to ask you is, how did you get into presenting or radio in the first place? Was it something that you'd always, like, from quite young, you always felt this was an area that you wanted to explore?
Honest answer is no. I never really knew what I wanted to do, because I think that my problem is, and for those that are old enough who's watching the podcast, my CV is as thick as the Yellow Pages. It's big. I mean, there's one job in particular that I'll always remember, where I came back from traveling and I was like, oh, I need to get some work, but there's nothing out there. I'll do some agency work. And I remember that there was a lorry of frozen prawns that I had to unload just for a day's work. And I went, yeah, why not? But I think that for me personally, like I've worked in so many different sectors, whether it was tech, fintech, I worked in banking, I worked for travel firms, I've been dipped in and out of hospitality for more years than I want to name, and worked in every level of that, working from waiter and barman to chef to general manager to X, Y, and Z. And I was just like, okay, well, what's next? What else can I do? So I was working for a company, and it was just coming up to sort of at the time when COVID was coming around. And for years, people had said to me, they were like, oh, you should maybe start a podcast, or, go on radio. You've got the face for it. And I was like, thank you very much. But at the same time, I was like, oh, I don't know. And I mean, I grew up as a musician. So my dad's been a guitarist for now over 60 years or whatever. And I've always been a drummer and a bit of a singer, but then I've sort of dabbled in other things. So, but I was always at the background, and I was like, well, my voice doesn't need to be heard because I'm drumming at the back, so it doesn't really matter. And then from there, when we got into lockdown, and at the time I'd just been made redundant from one particular firm because they knew that there was something coming. And they were just like, okay, we're preparing ourselves, because they were quite a small firm. So they were like, we're paying you a decent wage, but we need to cut costs. So unfortunately, you are made redundant. So I was like, well, not happy about it, but okay, I see what you're saying. So I then went and worked in a pub in Tooting at the time when I was living in London. And I just went in there and was working for about 6 weeks. And then we fully locked down. And I was like, oh, what am I going to do now? So I took the advice on of people that were telling me, you should start a podcast and radio on X, Y, and Z. And I did. I got myself, I had a laptop previously, but I just bought a microphone that you just plugged straight into your laptop, sorry. And then I was just like, yeah, why not give it a go? And I was like, okay, well, what's your subject matter? What's something that's going on? And this is where it gets a little bit deeper now. So I started.
That's okay. This podcast, I'm all about the deep conversations. So you can go.
So the podcast, initially, I called it the Dan Draper podcast, the first one, and it was all about mental health and well-being, because what I noticed in COVID, the biggest thing that I noticed was people's mental health that was declining. And the example that I always use for that is my football lads chat back at home when I was playing Sunday League football. It'd always be, oh, Harry Kane's not doing very well, or so-and-so, or did you see Eric Dyer, or whatever it was. And then the conversations then changed to, lads, I'm really struggling without football and seeing you at the pub, or lads, I don't know what's going on. I'm really scared for my mum. I haven't seen her in ages. She's had a bit of a cough and a cold. And that was the type of thing. And there was one guy in particular, and he just said, boys, I'm really struggling. Like, I don't like being locked in. Like, he was very much, or is very much still a guy that loves to go out to the pub, loves to be social, loves this, that, and the other. Not in terms of like getting on the sesh type of thing, but just loves being around people. And I think that it may be at one point, and he sort of mentioned something to me before about his own insecurities of being alone and abandoned and stuff like that. I think that kind of played into it for him at that particular point. So I was like, okay, well, you've had your own struggles. Let's start talking about that. Now, my struggles started when I was genuinely having the time of my life almost 10 years ago now. So I was traveling around Southeast Asia and I was doing Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, and I was due to do Philippines and Bali, all of the most wonderful places, right? And I was doing it to come back just before Christmas. So amazing time through Thailand, amazing time through Cambodia. As soon as I got to Vietnam, I got about halfway through the trip. And then I get a text to say that one of our close family friends who I'd kind of grown up with, she was a bit older, but she unfortunately passed away due to terminal cancer. And she left behind a husband and a couple of kids. Now, literally a day or two later, I've got a friend and we're in Vietnam, and I didn't realize that that particular person was taking things that they shouldn't have been taking and mixing it with alcohol. So we then had to take them to a Vietnamese hospital and they were having to be looked after. All in the meantime, whilst I've got Wi-Fi, my dad's trying to call me and FaceTime me. And it wasn't until I picked the phone up afterwards, once I've got my friend home from being treated, that he told me that my nan passed away. Now, my nan was suffering with dementia and Alzheimer's. She was in a home. And it was a really difficult thing because my nan was always one of those people when you're growing up that was, you know, if you're ever having an argument with your mum and dad, then you can go to your nan kind of thing, or your granddad or whatever it was. But it was difficult because I feel like with such a horrible disease like dementia and Alzheimer's, you can potentially lose the person a few years beforehand. So I feel like she was still my nan, but at the same time, I was like, actually, it's more of a relief for her now because she's not waking up confused and a little bit angry and things like that as well. So I was like, okay, right, I need to sort of come back sooner rather than later, thinking about like what the timings of the trip was. And then the one that hit me the most is I was in the most beautiful mountain range in Vietnam, a place called Sapa, right in the mountains, boiling hot during the day, literally freezing at night. And we were staying with this wonderful family in like a little homestay. And when we were there, I was literally there for a day, and I got a phone call in the morning, and it was my dad again. And I was like, oh God, no, what's going on? Is it something to do with the funeral arrangements for me, Nat? And he said, are you available to chat for a minute? And I said, yeah, we're about to go out on a 5-10K hike. And he was like, yeah, you want to listen to this? And I was like, okay. He went, I'm not gonna say this in a bad way, but I'm gonna say to you that Dean's not very well. Now, giving you some context on Dean. Dean is my cousin, and we grew up as brothers. We were literally 9 days apart and inseparable. We were so close as kids. I mean, we were christened together at the time and all of that stuff that the parents used to do back in the day with parties and all that lot as well. So we were inseparable. And obviously, as you grow through school and you go through secondary school and things like that, you kind of find your own different groups of friends and you kind of go away a little bit. But like family occasions like Christmas and birthdays and everything, my mum's house was always the linchpin in the family. So we all congregated at my mum's house. So yeah, me and Dean had like a real close bond. As I said, it was like a brother. So when my dad said that Dean was ill, I immediately was like, right, I'm packing my bags and I'm coming home. And he was like, well, hold on, let's see what's going on at the moment. I went, no, I'm fine. I'm going to put the phone down. I'm going to pack up and go. Now, bearing in mind, I'm 6 hours away from the closest airport as well. So I'm doing that. I'm packing myself up. I'm saying to my dad, look, I booked a private taxi. It's going to cost 150 quid, which was obviously a lot in Vietnam. But I was like, I'm just going to get to the airport. I've changed my flight from Bangkok to Hanoi, and I'm coming home basically. In that 6 hours that was from the homestay to the airport, I was just sitting there. And again, I'm not a religious man, I would say. As I said, I've been christened as a kid, but I'm not a religious man. But I was literally praying and I was saying, you know, come on, Dean, like you've got this, like you're going to be fine and X, Y, and Z. And what had happened is that Dean had collapsed. He was a rugby player, fittest that he's ever been. Honestly, he was in such great shape, but he'd collapsed on the side of the rugby pitch. And then what had happened is they took him to our local hospital and they sort of triaged him and found out what was wrong. Then he had to go over to a specialist heart hospital that was over in Braintree because I grew up in Essex. So he was in Harlow and then had to go over to, I think it was Braintree, one of the two, or Basildon actually it was. And he had to have surgery. And what had happened is he had the surgery, survived surgery because he had a problem with his heart. And what they found out is that he had a missing valve from his heart, which you would have never known unless you had a specific test done. Yeah. So when he survived the surgery, they were like, oh my God, this is amazing, fantastic, X, Y, and Z. What had happened is that apparently the lactic acid that was built up from the sports playing that didn't cool down, shut down the rest of his organs after he'd done it, and that's when he passed. So I then found this information out as I've got to the airport, and my mum's texted me because I've just got Wi-Fi, and she said, "Ring me, not your uncle or Dean's wife." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, fair enough." So I rang my mum, and I could see that she was upset, and I was like, "Oh, is everything all right?" Like, just thinking generally she's upset because again, we grew up as brothers. It's like another son to her. And she was just like, "Yeah, Dean didn't make it," and I went, "What?" And she said, Don't make me repeat it, Daniel." And I was like, oh my God. And at that point, my whole world felt like it crumbled. Like at that point, you'd been through breakups, you'd had heartbreak and all that lot. But this was genuinely, I felt something go at that point. And so again, I was in the middle of this Vietnamese airport in the cafe. And I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't know how to control my emotions. So I slammed my hands down on the table and started absolutely bawling my eyes out. Real bad thing happened though, because a glass fell off the table and they thought that I was kicking off about something. So there was loads of Vietnamese. I think there was 6 of them come over with guns drawn, thinking that I was kicking off.
Yeah.
And and then after that, I then went to the check-in desk and said, "Look, I'm really sorry. Is there any chance that I can just have a row of seats to myself or something like that? Because I've just had a real bad family tragedy." And there was this guy on the desk, and he went, "No, not unless you pay. No, we're not doing that." And I was like, "Look, I wouldn't ask usually. I'm not that type of person. I'm not asking for a free upgrade. I'm just asking for a few seats on their own so I can just sit and grieve." Yeah, we don't have anything. Blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, oh, and then obviously I've then started crying again. There was one of the people that were part of the crew of the plane that saw me as I was coming up to the plane, because I almost missed the plane. I was on the phone to my dad just trying to comprehend what was going on because it was just such a whirlwind of emotions. And they were like, "If a Daniel Draper is in the airport, please come to gate number 6 or something." And I was at gate 18. So I was like, and you know how big an airport is when you're running between those gates. So I've literally sprinted from like gate 18 or 20 all the way down to gate 6. Just about made it. I'm sweating. I am crying. There is snot everywhere. And I was just like, oh, this is the worst look. And then a really lovely lady then turned around to me and said, "Look, Mr. Draper, we've heard that you've had a bit of a family tragedy. So we've actually arranged for you to sit at the back. Please feel free to let us know if you need anything or whatever." And I was like, I would always fly with that company now if and when I could, because of how they treated me. And then, I spent the next 19 and a half hours flying home, looking at pictures of Dean and I when we were kids and, going through old text messages and going from there. And then when I got home, I didn't know what to do with myself. So I was literally in such a state of what I now know as some type of depression that I didn't know what to do with myself with it. So I was like, again, picking up certain jobs like the frozen prawn situation and doing some odd office admin jobs just to try and sort of get myself back out into the world, because this happened around sort of November. So by the time that I'd started to get through a little bit of the grief, it was coming up to Christmas, and a lot of my friends were like, "Oh yeah, come out for drinks, come be sociable, whatever." And I found it so overwhelming that I was having a panic attack in the pub, which I'd been to this pub for a lot of my life. Like in a lot of my adult life, I was there. I was a regular with me and the boys when we went for football on a Sunday and stuff like that. And I just found it so overwhelming that I had to come outside. I had a panic attack. I started crying. I didn't know what to do with myself. And then, Christmas was always a bit rough as well, because that was the time that Dean and I used to get together all the time. Every year, that was our thing. From kids opening presents to adult life sharing a beer or whatever it may be. And then, I was like, okay, well, you need to get out of this funk at some point. So you used to love working up in London for a bank. Why don't you go work up in London again and expose yourself? And that's when I said earlier about the corporate jobs that came through. But with the podcast, because I'd gone through all of that and I started talking to people about their mental health and how they were struggling with, their own problems with it as such, and how they were feeling in those COVID times. I was really lucky to have some incredible conversations that then opened my mind up more to about mental health and how to heal myself, even from past trauma, and kind of move it forward from there. And then, and then that sort of segued into radio because I was a local person in Southwest London at that point, and they were looking for creatives in lockdown.
Mm.
And my old housemate was a newsreader for Riverside at the time. And they said, oh, yeah, you should have a chat with him. So I went in, did an interview. They then said to me, oh, yeah, we like the sound of your voice. Do you want to come do a mid-morning show? I said, yeah, great. And then they promoted me a few weeks later to The Breakfast Show, which was incredible. And then, yeah, it kind of just led to other opportunities with, as I said, on screen stuff, doing more bits like we said, Radio 1, things like that. So yeah, it was. There's been some horrible things. Obviously, there's been some horrible things that have come out of COVID. A lot of pain, a lot of loss. What I try to do as well is I try to focus more on the positive side of it. And like I've seen so many people, like friends of mine, that have started a passion project like baking, and now they've got their own bakery business, or someone who has always liked tinkering about with cars but needed to pay the rent, and now they're a mechanic, something like that. Or seen other people that have been in the creative industry or never would have been before, like myself, now coming into that and actually flourishing and thriving with what they're doing.
Yeah, I think, yeah, thank you as well for sharing that, for being so open as well, and talking about that experience. I mean, yeah, I mean, traveling is always, a bit of an experience. You expect to go out of your comfort zone, but I can imagine also feeling so far away from everyone must
Yeah,
have been so difficult. Obviously, those situations, it's always going to be difficult and painful, but feeling partly for yourself, not being surrounded by people, your support network, but there might be an element as well, which obviously is it's not true, but people might think, oh, if he was here, he might be able to help. So you probably in your mind, you're thinking, oh, I'm so far away. I want to help my mum. I want to help my family who are also going through it. But
honestly, and I still have that now, to be honest with you. There's certain times where I'm, say, on a holiday or I'm about to go on holiday, and it's like I'm saying goodbye for the last time, which is really, I know it sounds really strange, but I'm just living fear now that there's another situation like that. Like there was an ex-partner of mine was Irish, and she wanted me to move to Ireland to go live with basically her and her family and this, that, and the other. And I said for multiple reasons that I couldn't do that. And obviously the relationship then failed. But I think a big part of it was because of the distance. And I know that it's only an hour on a plane, but if it's anywhere, if I think it's the physical distance, because where I live comparatively to my family now, I'm about an hour away. So the time isn't the difference. It's just being in the same country, being able to run around the motorway and go and see them,
I think it's a big, and that will be, as you say, as a result of that experience that happened. And but yeah, and I think it's something you said there as well about the lads and the football team and that WhatsApp group. And I think, firstly, I think that's really it shows it's probably a good group of lads that people felt they could be open and vulnerable on there in that WhatsApp group. But also, yeah, I've noticed similar. I think lockdown has really. I think it was that just big reset. Everyone just realised how quickly things can change.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
how much do they love what they're doing? Do they want to be doing this forever? And it kind of realized as well that things can change. I think like working from home, working hybrid, working remotely. You think 10 years ago people would be like, what's that? Like not many people did it. Like our company,
Yeah.
I was working for charity at the time, fundraising. That was the one I was working with Wilf. We were talking before we hit record.
Yes. Yeah.
He came on your podcast, which we'll get back to the wrapping your head around it. But yeah, we had a team that we were in the office. The energy was great, and then going to remote, it just killed that team. Really, just in terms of it wasn't the same because no one was doing fundraisers anymore because everyone was locked in, and it just changed the dynamic. But yeah, I think it was a real reset, and like you say, people doing passion projects, or just if there's something you love, just give it a go, as you say, and
yeah, absolutely,
you enjoy. And I think that's one of the things I would say to people as well. If people say they're struggling with work, I think it's hard. I know I'm in a privileged position that I was able to. So my previous job before this one, I actually left with nothing lined up, which was a bit of like I know that I'm very privileged that not everyone is able to do that, but and it all worked out okay. I'm loving what I'm doing now, and it just shows that sometimes again, I wouldn't say mine's like the yellow pages, but I've done a very had a very squiggly career path, should I say, in terms of compared to some others. But yeah, it was a bit of a like, it felt a bit like a cliff. Like, oh, do I make that call? But just freed up that headspace. And often people, I think you feel like you're caught somewhere where that's not always the case.
Yeah.
Sometimes you try and take that control, but it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
Because it's scary to go out of something that, even if it's not amazing, is comfortable.
I think that's the thing, is coming out of your comfort zone as well. I mean, I don't know about yourself, but I was always raised to kind of have your sort of stereotypical go get an office job or go be a tradesman or go do something like that. Is this going to work out for you? And there's always people that would self-doubt. And I'm not saying it's, parents, but there's friends that are always in that same sort of category where it's like, oh yeah, it's never going to work, mate. You're just doing it a bit of a laugh, a bit cringy, it's a bit this, that, and the other. But I saw a really good Instagram post, and it was like, it's only cringy until it works. And then the amount of people, again, there's certain aspects of what I do with my career and stuff that, yes, it is cringy, and I understand that it's cringy, but at the same time also, it is now starting to work and it's starting to pay off. And there's now people that are coming up to me and saying, I always believed in you, mate. I knew it was going to happen. And I'm like, well, you're the person that said it wasn't. So, but it's nice. It's nice to now have changed people's mindsets and on that as well.
I think I've felt that a little bit as well with Cappuccino, the page that I started, which was initially just reviewing cafes, just a little bit more context and background on that. Some people who listen to a lot of these episodes, they might know a bit of the background, but so I was off work I struggled with burnout and had a breakdown really when I was I was studying a PhD at the time. So I was convinced I was going to become a doctor in chemistry, and I was, going to, change the world and make, which maybe we'll still do with where I went now. But anyway, I really wanted to be an academic, and I really liked the idea of that. And it came from, I was quite strong at school, strong academically, but I used that as an escape from family life. My parents split when I was about 10. And the thing I could control was, my studies. And so I was like, I'm going to throw myself into this. And teachers are telling me I'm, doing a great job, and I'm getting A grades. And, I liked that validation side of it.
Yeah.
Went to uni, was successful at uni. Then for me, the only career path that seemed obvious was I'll just carry on studying and do a PhD. Then suddenly you get to this field where it's research. The nature of it doesn't always work. So I was doing long days, but just didn't seem to be getting any progression. And I just couldn't separate the science not working to me, like not being good at what I was doing or successful. So yeah, really struggled with that. That was a dark time, and ended up just burning out. I was one of those people who never liked to take holidays. I felt, I should be working all the time, achieving, which when I look back I find it quite cringy now because of what I've been, how it's changed, like, my perspective on things and what's important. But it was just said, I'll have one day off because I'm quite tired and just need a break. But yeah, never went back in the lab. It was like I took that one day and my body stopped, and it just completely shut down. It's like I allowed myself to stop, and then I just couldn't face going back. And so I was off work for about 6 months. But in that time, I felt like I wanted to be out of the house, have a bit of a purpose, something to keep me busy. So I would just go to cafes and just take a book. And then I started an Instagram page, reviewing them, because Oxford's got some amazing cafes, and didn't have my face or name to it because I was a bit embarrassed initially, because I didn't want, friends that knew me or people that knew me from that science world to think, oh, you said you were going to achieve this, and now you're not even working and you're in a cafe, So there was some shame there. But then started to do a few posts while I'm in the cafe in the day and speaking about mental health, and it got traction. And when I started, I did get a few messages from people or saying that were a bit negative, that were almost effectively saying, well, you failed, you haven't achieved what you're going to do, blah, blah, blah. It's interesting now that it's, I've been consistent. It's been going about 6 years now. I've got my own brand of coffee. We sponsor some football teams locally. I got the podcast, and it started to grow organically. And then there's a few people who then, if I bumped into them, they're like, oh, it's so cool what you're doing. And I remember I'm like, they're the same people that were telling me basically you're not who you set out to be. So,
well, props to you, man, because it's so hard to turn it around from that commercial background and educational background to something that you're doing now to not only help support yourself, but support other people as well. Bit round of applause for you. Take a pat on the back.
No, it's nice. And I think sometimes I forget that. And I'm sure you feel the same sometimes, that we're busy and we're always looking at the next thing, particularly, I guess, when you've got like podcasts or there's views or hits or stuff that's in the media that there are measurables like that.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, I'll be like, okay, well, I want to get the next one out. I want to hit this many episodes. And actually, I think when I first started, I didn't even want to have my face or name on an Instagram page because I didn't want to be there. And now we're doing a podcast where I'm talking and sharing, and, you know, it's come a long way just personally. And then anything else that happens is a bonus. And it's nice that when I have people reach out, if they've got a friend who's listened or been on, and that's for me the biggest win. When someone reaches out and says, you know, oh, I love what you're doing. Like, I've been going through X, Y, Z, and just they feel like it's given them something to a bit of like, you know, oh, okay, I'm not the only person going through this. It's really cool. Really cool.
Yeah. Nice one, man.
And yeah, so your podcast, wrapping my head around it. So you mentioned that again, something I love what you said as well was that through having those conversations on there, you kind of take something from each one as well. So you feel like you're learning yourself, and just those conversations are really cool. But it's come back recently as well.
Yes.
Podcast. The first episode has done well, seems to be doing very well.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
Really good engagement, and I'm really, I'm buzzing for you because I've seen you kind of, you were coming back, and there must have been a bit of you that was it a bit of a tough decision to think, do I bring it back? Do I not? Do I keep to just the radio stuff?
Yeah, I think so. And what it was is that, and you'll know from yourself, you'll push yourself so far that I like burnout for me was once every 6 weeks or something like that at that point, because I was just trying to juggle too many things. You know, being a freelance presenter, you're either doing speed dating events or you're doing big Christmas light switch-ons, you're doing Radio 1, you're doing this, that, and the other. There's all a plethora of things that you're doing, right? And at one point, I was like, okay, well, I'm doing the podcast. What am I getting out of it at this point? Because I had some good people come on the podcast, Wilf included, but I had some good people on there, but I wasn't getting kind of anything from it. You know, I wasn't. And when you're talking about, you know, for certain companies, when you're trying to get sponsorship and things like that, they want to see something like 10,000 downloads per episode, or they want to see X, Y, and Z, you know, those types of conversations. And I was just like, well, I'm not going to get that. Like, I'm at the moment, at the level of presenter that I am currently, pre-Radio 1, I'm not going to get that. So I was just like, okay, well, let's just do it for fun. Let's do it for content. Let's see if it can build your presenting skills up, your interviewing skills, and all of that lot. So I had the first podcast called the Dan Draper podcast. That was the fully mental health one. And then I was like, right, I'm going to rebrand it and I'm going to do something slightly different with it. I'm going to change the title of it. So I'm going to call it Wrapping My Head Around It. But I wanted to keep the subject matter the same around mental health and well-being. So I was like, okay, well, how are you going to do that? What's going to be different? So I was like, right, plonk yourself in the studio, pay the studio cost X, Y, and Z. And I have to honestly say, I spent about $3,500 on last series just in studio fees, for it to not give me a lot at all. I mean, there were some episodes, for example, that would have had, say, 60 downloads or something like that, and would have had X amount of views. And I'm obviously very grateful now.
Yeah, I find it, sorry, just to interrupt, but I find it, challenges I've had with, again, because mine's very home, you know, I'll either do them online like this, or I just, you know, film on my phones and plug in Bluetooth headphones. And I haven't really spent out on mine. It's now like, this is 4th series. And I am at that point, I'm like, I want to improve the quality of the product, but at the same time, I don't get anything from it financially at the moment. It's just, you know, as you say, for fun, and I'm learning. But it's really difficult to think, you know, obviously sometimes there's going to have to be some outlay to improve the quality. But for me, it's along with working full time alongside it, I'm like, do I want to, and then do I commit to it? And then once you've got sponsors, you're then not saying you have to report to them as such, but it might be a bit stricter with you release here. So I'm at that kind of stage maybe myself. I'm like, do I really want to push it? Do I not? Sorry to interject, but I just felt some of those things you're thinking there about. It's when you put the outlay out, and then it's like, what am I actually getting from this? Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And I was like, I was kind of not losing the fun of it, because I enjoy being in the studio, you know, the lights, the this, the that, the other. And it was kind of like, okay, this is where I feel like I need to be. But again, unfortunately, there was something that happened right at the beginning of the series, actually. So I filmed the first 2 episodes, and the technical 3rd episode was the one that was about Dean. So I did a two-part episode, and it was firstly talking about rugby and mental health, but secondly was remembering Dean, and I was releasing that one on the anniversary of his passing. So that for me is something that I'd always wanted to do, and I would still say now is probably some of my proudest work, if I'm honest. And I was just like, okay, how is it that I'm going to be able to do that, and how is it going to work? So I planned it all out. I filmed it at our local rugby club in Harlow, got some of Dean's best friends, and we were just talking loads of stuff about, rugby and him and X, Y, and Z. And what had actually happened, my wife, she was my girlfriend at the time, but my wife was on holiday. She'd literally just landed from her holiday, and we were just having like a chilled night in and a bit of a lazy morning. And I woke up the next morning to like 18 phone calls from either my sister or my dad or something like that. And there was someone in my family that got very, very ill very, very quickly, to the point that we almost lost them, almost like that. And I was like, wow, I need to get back home to Essex right now. And then, after that, I was just like, okay, well, I'm going to have to stay down here. I've dropped the pod. I'm doing this, that, and the other. But then obviously I've not only got everyone together and was so excited for this project, but I was like, we're in a stage now that we don't know exactly what's happening. So maybe it's kind of like, if you can't be by that person's side, then there's, general life that kind of needs to go on. So I was like, okay, well, I'll continue on and do the episode. So I sat down, and obviously at that point, this was very touch and go. And I just had to put presenter face on, and I was just, we're back with another episode of wrapping my head around it. But in my head, I'm like, oh my God, is this person okay? Like, are they going to make it? Are they going to do it? And for me, that was watching that back. I was like, you got through that. That's fine. But then when I started doing the later episodes, that particular person was still quite ill and was quite ill for a while. And I was just like, why am I doing this? Like, what, the spark's kind of gone from it. I didn't really want to sort of not keep going with it, but I was so distracted that I was just going through the motions. And if you watch it back, like I've watched a few of the episodes back, the episodes, in my opinion, still have a lot of my personality in it, have a lot of this, that, and the other, but it's very structured, very rigorous, very, I can say it because it's my podcast, a bit boring at times, to be honest with you. Like it was so regimented that it was very much like, so every episode would be, hello and welcome back to another episode of Wrapping My Head Around It. I've got an amazing guest today. Hello, Will, for example. Yeah, hello, mate. Oh, yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you? Yeah, I'm good, thanks. So what was your lowest point then, Will? What was your highest point? What was your this, that? And it was that constant...
Yeah.
Yeah, literally.
Scripted, and I don't know how much there was scripted, but for you watching it back, you just felt like, going through the motions is probably a really good way of describing that, maybe, of how you were feeling internally at that point. Doing
exactly that, and then the person in question started to get better, and you could see that I'm sort of brightening up a little bit, but I was just like, why am I doing this? Like, what am I actually gaining from it? You've, as I said earlier, you spent all this money on it and to get absolutely nothing in terms of things like downloads and views and followers and X, Y, Z, all that digital currency that we now need, apparently. But I didn't really get much from it, and I was like, okay, well, just take a break then. Like, you need to take a break. There's you've got other things that you need to focus on. You've also got a partner now that you've been wanting to be with for years. So you've got to prioritize that in that situation as well. And I was just like, do you know what? Let's just give it a break for a bit. Let's just calm down. So I did. I took a break, and I was like, I always wanted to bring it back at a certain point, but I was like, how am I going to bring it back? And it took me almost, it's been over 18 months or more since my last episode came out. And I was just like, okay, well, I need to come back with something different, because in the mental health space, there was a lot of other people that, like, for example, Stephen Bartlett, Diary of a CEO, that type of thing. And then you've got other bigger celebrity podcasts that are coming out talking about mental health and well-being. And I was like, okay, well, how am I going to pitch myself as an independent podcaster, knowing that I want to talk about this subject, but also competing with these bigger people? So I was like, okay, well, maybe you change it up a little bit then. Like, what you do is that you still sprinkle in the mental health side of it, but actually you want something that's a bit more engaging, a bit more something that everybody can relate to, rather than thinking, because I think a lot of people will see mental health sometimes as a bit of a negative and a bit of a sort of Debbie Downer situation. But actually, it's such an important subject that we need to talk about. that there's other ways that you can do it in terms of a more fun sense. So, for example, in Lee and David's episode, when I was speaking to them about Married at First Sight, I asked them as part of their mental health bit, if you like, and they, again, it was very like guest led. But I said to them, did you felt looked after by the show and the runners and everything that was going on? And that was the bit where they opened up and they started speaking about it. And then you've got obviously the general stuff that we were talking about the show and X, Y, and Z. But at the same time, if you, for me, I've now changed my mindset, because you hear a lot about fatigue with different things, whether it's Pedro Pascal fatigue or whether it's mental health fatigue or whether it's whatever. Like, people just don't want things constantly rammed down the throat. And I was like, okay, how do I keep the a slight essence of it, but also at the same time make it in a different way? And yeah, that's kind of what I've done now.
I think also on that, I think I agree 100% with that. If something's labelled purely as mental health, it sometimes can put people off, or they think, oh no, I'm not sure, I don't need to listen to that, I don't want to listen to that sometimes. But by, as you say, just having another topic and bringing it in, sometimes as well, you just capture a wider audience of people that wouldn't normally listen to podcasts that talk about that topic.
Yeah.
And so people don't even realize when they go to watch that they're going to get a little bit of that, and then maybe they leave in it sparks and thoughts or conversations. And I think I've noticed, because we tried with the football club, like, so Didcot Town, a local football club, non-league. I won't be offended if you haven't heard of them.
I've heard of Didcot Town. I have, yeah.
Yeah, amazing. But so we did I think it was called it escapes me now. But effectively, it was about being, I think it was like mindful teammates or something, was along the name of it, being a good teammate or something. And at the club, and it was myself and Restore, who are a local charity, and we wanted to do an event that was about maybe for the players, coaches, and fans come along and talk. And it wasn't that well attended, to be honest. But then part of me was like, I can see that why, especially in that environment, and people think by even attending, unfortunately, there's still that view in some people that, oh, well, if you're going, it's because maybe you need help, or and so it was difficult to get engagement. Whereas when in future we've done something different, where it was, we'll have a little tournament, like a little five-a-side tournament, and then afterwards there'll be a bit of a talk about something, and you bring people for the football, and then they have a little sprinkling of it. So I can relate. It can be, it just widens the net a little bit on people that are going to listen.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the thing is as well, with the new structure that I've got for the podcast, there's certain features that I've put in there that are like really fun features that are engaging and X, Y, and Z. But it's kind of like, and the way that I describe it is it's kind of like a sandwich. So I've got the fun bits in the middle. I'll sprinkle a little bit in, but then we've got the fun bits after that as well. So it's just, for me as well, it was reshaping my mind, listening to loads of different podcasts, because my wife, for example, loves listening to podcasts, all the sort of top 10 ones that you can imagine. But yeah, I was just like, how do I reshape it into something that actually people are going to want to listen to, that are in a space that actually it's fun, it's uplifting? How do we basically release the stigma of mental health and the grey cloud that people associate with it? And yeah, I think that's where I've changed things up a little bit, is that's kind of not necessarily taking a huge backseat from the mental health side of it, but taking a backseat a little bit and going into the more entertaining side of it to grow the audience, but keeping that at its core as well.
And makes it fun for yourself as well.
Definitely.
You want to do new things and challenge yourself when you're doing it as well. And I'm sure you've got big plans for the series.
Yeah, absolutely.
I look forward to kind of following it and seeing how it goes, mate. Yeah.
Thank you.
Continue on the radio as and when you appear.
Yeah, but, I'll be around.
Yeah, definitely. Very time. I feel like, I mean, I could chat for ages. We could just chat and chat. But
that's my problem. You give me literally an inch and I'll take the biggest mile to chat. I'm like,
no, it's been great. And but a question I ask everyone is, what does happiness mean to you? So I'm going to ask that to you now to kind of wrap up the conversation.
That's a great question. One that actually literally just shot me straight through the heart, to be honest with you. What does happiness mean to me? I think it means I've refound happiness again, if I'm honest with you, because I've had a really strong year last year in terms of business wise and career and X, Y, and Z. It was incredible because I basically was going to give up presenting. I was going to leave it all alone. And then I went on a long trip. My partner's a lawyer, and we went out on a conference. And we took a long holiday on the end of it. And rather than me doing social media and X, Y, and Z, I was like, no, just enjoy being with your person and all of that. And as soon as wheels touched ground when we got back, is when everything kind of kicked off. So I was like, oh, okay, I'm happy with that. But what's the next level of happy? Because I'm always looking for that next sort of high, if you like. So I think that my happiness this year has been the fact that I got engaged in December last year, and we decided that we were going to turn around and do a wedding, and we actually got married in August. So he's a married man now.
Congratulations.
Thank you, buddy.
I was August last year, so yeah.
Oh, nice. But yeah, I think that was my happiness, is actually knowing that I've got someone who's so genuinely supportive of me, who's able to, kind of pick me up on my down days, on things when things are going wrong, or when you're, as a presenter, your ego isn't being stroked or anything like that, But at the same time, I think that's my new happiness that I've found, is the fact that I've found someone that makes me feel like I can genuinely take on the world and not have any fear with that either. And when I do have any sort of fear or whatever it may be, that they're right by my side, and that they're able to kind of pick you up when you need it, and also at the same time just kind of, go from there. So yeah, I'd say actually genuinely meeting my wife and now being married to her, and the excitement of what next steps are going to be as well, is my kind of happy place at the moment. Yeah.
Amazing. Love that. Can't help but smile. No, it's great. And I think it's that sometimes perspective as well. I think we get caught up in our, the work and what we want to produce. And of course we have goals and we have things we want to achieve. And again, especially in your line of work, I guess, like for a lot of what you're doing, what's quite nice is probably you never probably see the limit or the full amount of joy or happiness or impact that you're making. Because you know numbers on listeners and this, that, and the other, but just by putting out there, when you really are making a difference to people every day, which is really cool.
Thank you, man.
And
it's also nice as well that I've recently got into like helping other presenters get into the industry. But also, for example, my wife, which she is now producer on the podcast, she is now this, that, and the other. Like, she helps me out with absolutely everything. And it's nice also that I'm teaching her how to do something, because she's a lawyer, so she's not in the creative field at all. But it's now nice that she's helping me, and I'm sort of,
and doing it together as well.
Yeah.
Doing it together, amazing. And yeah, that perspective. I mean, yeah, talking about with my podcast and everything, like, so a month today, well, when this comes out, we're a bit further along, but a month today is due date for my wife and I's first little one as well.
Oh, congratulations, mate.
As well. So yeah, in terms of perspective and that's going to shift everything again. So really exciting, but just, yeah, remembering, as you say, that happiness is people, the loved ones around you, and yeah, it's exciting.
Christmas baby.
Well, yeah, I know. For the baby's sake, we're kind of hoping it doesn't come like Christmas Day, because he's like, you're gonna have to share your present, share the day with everyone.
Yeah, you got to double up at that point. It's going to be expensive year for you now.
But so New Year is going to be it's going to be new challenges, new exciting things. But yeah, really looking forward to it. But managed to as well with work. So obviously work full time on side, but actually at the moment we're hiring a paternity cover to help me out, which probably doesn't happen too much, but just with that shift, because I'm going down to part time for 6 months, with my wife being off as well. So we're going to have 6 months, like really, like, just that's going to be like our focus. I'm really looking forward to just like starting the family and everything.
That's amazing, man. Congratulations, genuinely.
Yeah, it's exciting times, scary times, but exciting times. Yeah. But no, Dan, thanks so much for joining me. Thanks so much for your insights, for hearing about a little bit about your career, a little bit about your stories, and thanks for being so open as well, and talking about kind of why that means so much to you, to kind of share the message around mental health as well.
Yeah. Of course, man. Thank you so much for having me. It's an important message that we need to keep releasing the stigma to. So yeah, I absolutely loved it. Thank you, mate.
Amazing. Thanks very much. And yeah, I look forward to listening to the rest of your series as well, and seeing who else we end up in that chair behind you then. So it sounds like you're going to have some exciting guests. Yeah.
I got a few, yeah.
Amazing. Cheers, Dan.
Thank you, buddy.
tuning in to this latest episode of Flat Whites and Insights, and I really hope you gained something from that conversation, because I know I certainly did. It would mean a lot if you can head over to Instagram and give Cappuccino a follow. This is where you can keep up with the content that I'm putting out and where I'm hoping to raise awareness of mental health through my passions for football, coffee, and people. In addition to this, if you want to reach out and connect or come on the podcast yourself and have a conversation, please do get in touch, because I'm always keen to speak to new people and hear about new experiences. Thank you so much. Take care, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.